joining us. This is the France 24 debate ahead of Mitt Romney's acceptance speech at the Republican convention in Tampa, Florida. We're wondering if Romney and his new running mate, Paul Ryan, can beat Obama. We're talking about it with Stuart Haugen of Republicans Abroad, Douglas Grukloft of Democrats Abroad, Amy Green, the author in French for Now of America After Obama, and Philippe Moreau-Chevrolet of Le Plus, the interactive website of French news magazine Le Nouvel Observateur. We were talking before the break, Philippe, about trends and everything. And one of the things I noticed is quite brutal, and we've said this before, is now with social media, there's all these fact checkers who can be out there immediately. And they picked up on at least 6 or 7 points in which they didn't agree with things that Paul Ryan said. The Huffington Post quotes a Republican pollster as saying, fact checkers aren't going to dictate we're not going to let our campaign be dictated by fact checkers.
That's quite a funny quote. That's like saying we are allowed to lie. This is a campaign. That's a bit funny to say such.
But is there some truth in it? Amy was saying before the break. Amy was saying before the break how this could, ultimately it's about what is the policy on the matter. But is it about telling the truth, or is it about hammering home a message?
You have to go with fact checkers, obviously, because there is a huge disproportion between your message and their message. When you talk on TV in front of millions of people, even if you lie, we had the same problem with some of Sarkozy's speeches. Even if you lie, it's heard by millions of people. And the fact checkers are only read by a minority of these people. So fact checking is not so much a problem for communicators in these political parties. They should go with it. You have to live with it now, and you have to take it into account. It doesn't stop you from being exaggerated in your speech.
I would only say that there's a whole lot of dispute coming in as to whether fact checkers are legitimately nonpartisan and open now too. There are several who you can point to the qualified manner in which they try to say this is mostly. It's putting so many conditions. I don't see how politics is not creeping into fact-checking as well. In fact, it appears to be quite strong.
So that's a positive development?
No, I think it's a negative development, but they position themselves as objective fact-checkers, and they're starting to carry in their own bias, whether it's from the right or the left. There is a bias that seems to be creeping in. It's just like anybody with
That's very much a Republican point of view on information.
Well, of course, because typically the media sides left in the United States, the liberals, and therefore a fact checker will side that way too. You say it's typically Republican.
Except on Fox News, maybe.
No, I would argue that Fox News is Fox News needs to be taken. You need to separate news from commentary. And yes, it's very much a conservative position.
Right. What is for sure is what you were saying in part one, is that Paul Ryan is trending and he is galvanizing people inside the Republican Party.
He's young.
4 years ago, the Republican convention turned into something of another debutante's ball for a hitherto unknown running mate who, 4 years ago, stole the show.
I love those hockey moms. You know, they say the difference between a hockey mom and a pit bull? Lipstick.
She had a lot of charisma, Sarah Palin, but ultimately didn't really help John McCain at the end of the day. Will Paul Ryan being on the ticket again help or hurt Mitt Romney?
I don't think Paul Ryan will specifically hurt Mitt Romney's chances of being president, but I don't think that Paul Ryan will successfully change the dynamics of the race as they've already galvanized. I don't think Paul Ryan is capable of really putting any of the swing states into play, perhaps except for his own home state of Wisconsin. He doesn't appear to be someone who can really go out and sort of start to narrow the gap between Obama and Romney in terms of women voters, Hispanics, African-American voters, young people. Those are groups with which Mitt Romney is struggling massively compared to Obama. Those are groups that Mitt Romney really needs to start to win, with which he needs to make inroads to really close the gap. And I don't think this is a group that Paul Ryan is really going to be capable. These are groups that he'll be capable of attracting.
I don't agree at all. I'll tell you what, the young are really reacting to Ryan, and they're sitting there saying, finally, somebody who's not lying to me. I pay every month out of my paycheck for Medicare and Social Security, and yet I know there's not going to be any money there when I get
So is he upstaging Mitt Romney?
No, I think he's appealing to a group, and the two of them have bonded to send a message. We're going to talk the truth to American people. If we don't get elected, we don't get elected.
Paul
But we're going to
Ryan's
split the
job
truth.
is to make Obama appear old. He's trying very much to do that.
Well, and to make Obama appear to be a dishonest politician who's holding up smoke and mirrors.
4 years is not getting old for Obama. Obama is still quite young. I mean,
Paul Ryan has his own set of smoke and mirrors. I personally don't think he was chosen so much for his youth as for his particular positions on the budget and his reputation among the conservative wing of the very conservative Republican Party, that he was the man for the job. I mean, I don't think it's a coincidence that Rupert Murdoch's newspapers came out and strongly supported him, and that others that were in the same ideological grouping felt very strongly about it. I will say one thing to Mitt Romney's credit in this. I think, unlike John McCain's choice, I think he's chosen someone that's not going to raise the question, is this person capable of being president?
Yeah.
I don't agree with anything Paul Ryan says, but I think he's got the serious purpose and intellectual heft to take on the duties. So I think from that, at least from that perspective, he has avoided the questioning that John McCain had to submit to for 2 months. Who is this clown you chose as your running mate?
There's another piece, though. He gets under Barack Obama's skin. If you ever look at the interactions in video in the healthcare debates, when Paul Ryan comes up, he doesn't raise his voice. He's Mr. President. Hiding debt doesn't reduce debt. Hiding expenditures don't. And Barack Obama, if you look at his face, goes ballistic.
Paul Ryan is very good for 2016, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, I think he's very good this year. I think it's over for Barack Obama. I really do.
The question remains, what will it do to the top of the ticket? Again, Mitt Romney will be making that speech in a few hours' time. He's been working hard to shed an image of being someone who's a bit awkward, a bit stiff, patrician, some might say. In when he first publicly unveiled Ryan in the congressman's home state of Wisconsin, it certainly energized the base. There you see Mitt Romney without the necktie and the jacket. Amy Green, what does he have to do in terms of Mitt Romney in his speech? He's not going to redefine himself. Remember, there was that comment about the Etch-a-Sketch of one of his candidates, how, well, in the general election, all you have to do is redefine yourself after what you said in the primaries. He's not going to be able to do that. So what does he do in this speech?
Well, a lot of people have been giving Mitt Romney a lot of advice over the past couple of days about what he should do in his speech. I think generally speaking, he does have to introduce himself to the American people in the sense that this is really the first time a lot of Americans are going to start to pay attention to his candidacy, really start to look hard at him for the first time.
Even though this has been going on?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of Americans really start to wake up now and focus on the race now. So there's a question of having to introduce himself to start to reorient the momentum for his narrative, which has been largely over the summer defined by the Obama campaign. I also think that Mitt Romney, he has to start laying out some more specific elements of his vision. Now, the American people in the general election aren't looking for the hard facts and detailed line policy items for every sort of issue that there is, but there does need to be an overall vision with some general principles and philosophies in getting there. It's something that Mitt Romney hasn't done so far. He's sort of stayed back, allowed himself to get through that tough Republican primary. He's at a point now where voters are going to demand more. Simply calling Obama a failure doesn't cut it. It's not going to get him to the White House. So Mitt Romney has to start getting more active about painting this large vision and the principles to get there if he hopes to alter the dynamics that still favor President Obama.
There's also in all of this, because again, this is carefully stage managed. We heard in the introduction Philip Crowther talk about how it's seamlessly organized, these conventions. I have a sociological question. It's the kissing on the spouse on the lips thing. Remember François Hollande, or the French president, on his night, it was a very awkward moment when he kissed his partner, Valérie Trierweiler. I want you to have a look at Romney at the convention with his wife, Anne. Is that one of those things that is going to make him more likable, this kind of image?
Yes, sure, it should make him more likable. Obviously, it's designed for it. The thing is, he doesn't appear to be very at ease. He's always stiff and a little bit always on the, he doesn't give his body to the audience. He's like a comedian who is in retreat of the audience. It's like very much like, I know what I'm looked at. I know I have to be very cautious. I know I have to make some moves and not some other moves that I've been told not to do. And he's like a puppet a bit. He's not very fluent.
I don't agree.
That's why
I see him as a man who's reticent about sharing his personal emotions. He doesn't put it out on his sleeve, but it's not that he's being manipulated. or has been told. It's just that he has grown up in an environment where you don't use your personal feelings to manipulate other people's feelings. I think that's the difference. Barack Obama spills his heart and wears it on his sleeve, and he manipulates people with it. Mitt Romney says, my personal life is my personal life. I've gone through a lot. I've done a lot. I'm proud of it. My wife has gone through some very tough times. But I'm not going to use that to manipulate your point of view.
To be a candidate in this election. When you're
I don't agree with you. I think this is working with America. I think this is working with America, and I don't agree with anybody here who's saying the numbers are still in favor of Barack Obama. Right now, we're on the rise, and we went through Barack Obama this week. I think everything's looking very good. It isn't going to be. This is not even going to be a close election at the end of the day. It's not even going to be close.
Well, I think that's a remarkable statement.
I'll go on record for that. It won't even be a close election.
There will not be more than it will be.
Long ways.
Excuse me. I think that's really all the polls I've looked at show that the number of states where Obama is ahead or likely to win. He simply has a larger number of states. He's closer to the 270 than is Mitt Romney. And to say that this election,
being the number of
to say this election won't be close, because I am the first to say that I believe it will be a close election. Mr. Obama won in 2008 by 6 points, I believe. It was 53 to 47%. Let's talk about the popular vote for a moment. And I think it's fair to say that this will be a closer election. He had a weaker opponent, I think, and he was also coming off, his opponent was coming off 8 years of a catastrophic presidency of George W. Bush. So clearly it'll be a closer election, but I predict that Obama will win by a couple of points and will easily win on the electoral chart, because I don't see, right now, I don't see how Mr. Romney puts it together. I think that in terms of what the remarks you were making about his appeal to crowds, he is, we'll see what he does tonight. He is not someone, and I respect your views, Stu, but he is someone, if you look at the photographs of him and if you compare him with other candidates, whether they're Republican or Democrat, there is something that he is lacking in connecting with a crowd. And that may hurt him, it may not hurt him, but it is clearly visible when you watch him in action.
He looks a bit like John Kerry, if you want to be nonpartisan. He looks a bit like John Kerry.
The Republicans have promised a surprise, and it's a great PR move because we're all talking about it right now. There's been speculation about what that surprise might be. The company that makes holograms has denied that there'll be Ronald Reagan, the late Ronald Reagan, endorsing Mitt Romney at some point. But Romney did get an endorsement from 2 living presidents that was screened at the convention.
Dad and I both know what it takes to be president. And there's no doubt in our mind that Mitt Romney will be a great president.
All right, so it won't be George W. Bush showing up in the convention hall. What do you think the surprise will be, Amy Green?
I have no idea. I don't know. Fireworks?
It's Clint Eastwood. I think Dirty Harry's going to show up on screen, on stage. I really do.
All right.
That's the story I hear. It's Dirty Harry.
So we'll see how it...
I don't know that. It's a story.
All right, a possible answer there. We've been talking about how it's a tight election, how there's a few undecided voters. Amy Green making the point about key constituencies. You mentioned women. You mentioned Hispanics. And we are seeing ads that are popping up on both sides, ads like this one.
Cuando Obama y sus aliados demócratas nos digan,
¡Sí se puede!
Hay que decirles, ya no podemos más.
Soy Mitt Romney y apruebo este mensaje.
¡Sí se puede!
Se puede aceptar.
So there you see Mitt Romney with an ad in Spanish. How effective is that going to be, Stuart Haugen, in places like Florida, Nevada, some of these really crucial states where the Hispanic vote is now growing and growing? In fact, we can even show the chart. Their number has nearly doubled in the past decade. Are demographics tipped against the Republican Party in that sense?
Well, it depends on how those demographics play out. I mean, one of the things you have to remember, first of all, you mentioned Florida, you mentioned Nevada, you look at New Mexico. To California, it's a whole other thing because it's a Democrat stronghold that will never be touched, I guess, by any rational politic from any other place. Florida, we've got Marco Rubio, who's a rising star. New Mexico, Susana Martinez, who spoke last night. In Brian Sandoval, the governor of Nevada. These are young, bright Hispanics. And I would suggest that Barack Obama could could end welfare as we know it himself, and tomorrow he would still, in November, he would still get 95 to 98% of the black vote in America. It's just support of a first black president, and that's going to happen. I think the goal for Republicans there is just not to do anything to irritate the black community, make sure they understand that we're open, and there is a segmentation there. It's not a big one.
But on the Hispanic community?
The Hispanic community is much different because Hispanics at the root are much more conservative, both fiscally and socially. They're a much more socially conservative community. They're Catholic. They don't believe in abortion. They believe in marriage. They're against gay marriage. A lot of those things that tend to fall into the wheelhouse of the right. And someday they're going to break down. Right now, the immigration issue works against us. We have to solve that or we're going to pay a price for it.
Douglas Klukoff?
I agree with much of what Stu said about the Hispanic community. It is less monolithic than the African American community. However, the Republicans have, fortunately, in my view, because since I'm a Democrat, have been unable to win over the substantial portion of the Hispanic community because they refuse to take any centrist or reasonable position on immigration. And the Hispanics are the only demographic group in America for whom Hispanics who are also devout Catholics, for whom immigration trumps abortion. And until the Republicans come up with a policy that recognizes the legitimate aspirations of the millions of people who are in the United States, who are contributing to the economy, they will never, ever get a significant portion of the Hispanic vote, notwithstanding people like Mark Rubio and others. The conservative influence of the Cuban Americans is slowly dying off with that generation that emigrated from Cuba, the strong anti-communism. All this is disappearing. The Republicans have absolutely nothing to say to the Hispanics who are in the country legally, who have family members, maybe half the family is legal, half the family isn't, children who arrive. They have nothing to say to this group and don't want to have anything to say to this group. They don't even pay lip service to it. And as long as they continue to do that, they will never have a chance of winning that community. Whereas they would, in my view, have some potential to make inroads there because of what Stu said is true. In some ways, they're fairly socially conservative. Many of them are economically conservative. They're small business people. But they don't buy into the Republican racial agenda.
All right, and we have
let's not make that racial. It's an immigration agenda. It's not racial. I think that's a very unfair, and you throw the race card on the table at the end here. It's not very nice.
All right.
Nor very accurate.
We'll leave it there, but we'll have a chance to talk about it again. I want to thank you, Stuart Haugen. I want to thank Amy Green, Philippe Moreau-Chevrolet, and Douglas Klukoff for being with us. Thank you for joining us here in the France 24 debate. Oh, no.